All right, hello everybody. Let's continue my unit about world religions and talk about Christianity. Jesus and friends. Here we go. We're doing it. Clicking the button. Come on, you should work. Here we go. So, what's Christianity all about? Well, the whole thing of Christianity is summarized in this book called the Holy Bible. It is the most popular book ever made in the history of the world. If you go to a hotel, you'll probably find one hanging out in the drawer there, and this group called the Gideons encourages you to take one. So if you ever want to learn more about Christianity, the Bible, it's all there. And here's what you got to know. So the Jewish Torah, the Jewish holy book, is virtually the same thing as the first half of the Christian Bible. It's just the Christian Bible is divided into two books: the First Testament and the Second Testament, or the Old Testament and the New Testament. See, I knew there were two testaments. And the first half is basically the same thing as the Jewish Torah. The second half is the story of Jesus Christ. So that's kind of the whole, the New Testament. So the first Bible was written in Greek. I think that's kind of interesting. A lot of people think it was Latin, but nope. The original language was Greek. All right, moving on. So here are the three symbols of Christianity. I bet a lot of you are probably pretty familiar with the cross. This is kind of the most accepted symbol. But back in the day, the cross was not the symbol of choice. It was actually this symbol, this P inscribed within an X. And you're going to see this in some old historical stuff. This symbol is called the Chi Rho. And Chi Rho in Greek, here's how you would say Christ, Christos. And this XP is like the first two letters of Jesus' name. So there you go. And then, I forgot what this means in Greek. But also this fish symbol right here. This is also a big symbol of Christianity. And I'll talk about the fish. It's one of the miracles Jesus performs according to this religion. So, yeah, I definitely will test my students on all three of the proper symbols of Christianity. So, moving on. Boom. The fish, the cross, the Chi Rho. Okay, so let's talk about what Christians believe. Now, the story of Jesus Christ is really important for Christians, so I'm going to just glance over it. Here we go. So, a man named Jesus of Nazareth was born in year 0 in Bethlehem, and it's this whole story about how three wise men were traveling in the desert. They saw this star shine across the sky. They're like, hey, we should follow that star. Maybe we'll find something cool. And sure enough, this lady named Mary gives birth to a baby in a manger, and these three wise men show up. They give him gifts. They're like, this guy's gonna be really cool when he grows up. And the birth of this baby is literally how we delineate time according to our calendar, okay? Because before this baby was born is considered BC, BCE. And BC stands for before Christ, BCE before the Common Era. But after this baby's birth, we are now in the CE, the Common Era. But you'll most commonly see the word AD. And a lot of students think that AD means after death. But how the heck does that make any sense? Because baby Jesus was born in year 0. He doesn't die when he's a baby. AD is from a Latin term, Anno Domini, which in Latin means the year our Lord was born. So really we should put honestly AB, because after birth and before Christ. I don't know, but that's just how we do time. So AD is after Jesus was born. So there we go. All right, look, sleepy baby. What's the holiday we celebrate for this? It's Christmas. It's a national holiday in the United States. Okay, so Jesus grows up to be a great teacher. He performs a lot of miracles for his followers. And here's something kind of interesting in the Bible. There's this whole thing about when Jesus is born, and then literally like the next page, Jesus is a 35-year-old man. Like, we really don't have any part of the story about, boy Jesus, teenage Jesus, young man Jesus. He's just boom, straight up a 35-year-old dude being respected by society. And the story of Jesus is Jesus was adamant that he was Jewish, okay? He grew up in Israel. There's all these Jewish people. People called him rabbi. And some of the miracles he did, according to the Bible, he would go around to people. He would pray on them. They would suddenly get healed. He brought a dude back to life who was dead named Lazarus, turned water into wine. There's some great videos about this stuff interpreted by this one YouTube channel. So it's yeah, Jesus is just helping out people, being cool, high-fiving. So all these people are listening to him, performing some miracles. It happens. Yeah, Jesus taught humility, charity, and compassion for other people. And his big message was all people could receive salvation through faith alone. He said, you don't have to pay me a bunch of money. You don't have to, like, well, he does want you to pray, but you don't have to totally commit every moment of your life to prayer like maybe a Buddhist is or asked to do. He says, just believe. Just believe in religion and you're cool. And this is where the fish symbol comes in, because suppose the story goes, Jesus and his best friends were walking around the Sea of Galilee, and they had these like 3,000 people behind him, and these 3,000 people started to get hungry. So that Jesus is like, all right, how much food do we have to share? And they come up, they got like 2 fish and 3 loaves of bread, and his best friends are like, Jesus, we can't feed 3,000 people with this much food. Well, Jesus raises the basket of 2 fish and 3 loaves of bread up to the sky. He asks God for assistance, and sure enough, the basket just starts overflowing with fish and bread, and they pass it all out so that everybody gets their fill. And that's kind of where this fish symbol comes in. It's sort of like everybody can get a fish, everybody can share in the love of Jesus. Okay, so that's that idea. All right, boom, there's Jesus hanging out, making some friends. All right, this is where the story starts to get bad. So one day, Jesus goes to the Jewish temple, okay, and this is before it was burned down. So it's this, very holy place for the Jewish people. It's supposedly where they have a direct connection to God. Jesus goes to that temple, and he finds that there are some Jewish guys charging money to enter the temple. Well, Jesus gets really pissed, and he says, hey, this is the house of God. Everybody should have a right to pray and to come here without paying. So he flips over some of these tables. He causes kind of a ruckus. And then this sort of leads the Jewish people to talk to the Roman authorities and will ultimately end in Jesus' death. And so that same night, Jesus calls his best friends together. They have this event called the Last Supper. Jesus drinks this goblet called the Holy Grail, and famously at this table he says, one of you will betray me. It's Judas. Judas sells him out, and Jesus will get arrested, and eventually he will be crucified and executed. And this part of the story was never told to me as a young child. I always was like, if Jesus was such a great guy, why did they kill him? Well, and it's because he caused a ruckus at the temple. But yeah, he didn't want he didn't want to say pay to worship God. He wanted everybody to worship God. So there you go. All right, boom. Jesus is causing a scuffle, and there he is doing the Last Supper thing. Okay, so the Jewish council was super angry at Jesus. They brought him to the Romans, because at this time the Romans were kind of the occupiers, the authority of Israel. And the Roman governor of the time, his name was Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate, he had heard about Jesus before. And what he did was he brought out Jesus, and he brought out this, I think he was a rapist named Barabbas. And he showed them both to this crowd of people and is like, okay, I'll let one person free today. Either Jesus, this teacher guy, or Barabbas, this murderer, rapist, jerk. And the thing is, the Jewish council had paid off a lot of the people in the crowd. So they all demanded that Barabbas be set free and Jesus be crucified. And I mean, Pontius Pilate was kind of freaked out about all this. He's like, I don't want there to be a mob. I don't want them to attack the Roman authorities. So I'm going to have to crucify Jesus. And he felt really bad about it, but it's what the mob asked for, and it's what he ultimately did. So Jesus was found guilty. He was tortured and then crucified and killed. So pretty hard end to an otherwise good dude. All right. So, yep, this is Pontius Pilate asking the crowd who should be set free, and the crowd chooses Barabbas over Jesus. Jesus was nailed to the cross on this hill outside of Jerusalem. But actually, Jerusalem was a really small city back then, so he was actually crucified not terribly far away from the Jewish temple. But he was only on that cross for a couple hours, and later one of the Roman guards stabbed him in the lung with a spear, so Jesus actually bled out and died. He didn't die from suffocation like other people did on a crucifixion. But yep, so Jesus on the cross, and Jesus died. That's not the end of the story, though. That's what. Yeah, this isn't the end. Death is not the end, kids. All right, so there's Jesus on the cross, and this is kind of interesting to me because I can't comment about the historical reality of the miracles that Jesus did. Like, there's no historical record of him bringing a dude back to life or turning water into wine. That's just something that's a part of the faith. But the guy Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, he was a real dude for sure. And Pontius Pilate wrote this, kind of journal diary thing, and in there he talks about meeting a dude named Jesus. So Jesus was a real human being. He absolutely was. All the miracles, I can't attest to that. And the second part of the story, I can't attest to that either. But it's worth knowing that 2020 years ago, a guy named Jesus Christ lived and was crucified. If you ever ask a Christian what's the most important single part of the Bible, all of them are probably going to mention this one phrase here, John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but shall have eternal lasting life. So, yeah, and you'll see John 3:16 and all kinds of stuff. If you ever go to In-N-Out Burger, it's on the bottom of your drinks. And actually, just about everything from In-N-Out Burger has a little Jesus message in there somewhere. You gotta hunt for it. So, all right, moving on. So yeah, that's John 3:16 right there. John 3:16 on Forever 21. John 3:16 on tattoos, and it In-N-Out Burger. Pontius Pilate's his journal was in Greek, and this is what he wrote. Okay, a young man appeared in Galilee, preaching that God had sent him. At first I was apprehensive that his designs was to stir up the people against the Romans, but my fears were soon dispelled. Jesus of Nazareth spoke rather as a friend of the Romans than of the Jews. One day I observed in the midst of a group of people a young man who was leaning against a tree, calmly addressing the crowd. I was told it was Jesus. This I could have easily suspected, so great was the difference between him and those who were listening to him. His golden-colored hair and beard gave to his appearance a warm and welcoming feeling. He appeared to be about 30 years of age. Never have I seen a sweeter or more serene expression. So, yeah, dude actually met Jesus. Real event. All right, so now let's get back to what Christianity believes. So, the Bible says that 3 days after Jesus was crucified, Jesus came back to life. He just woke up from his tomb, opened the door to his tomb, walked out, and just said, "What's up?" to all his friends. He talked to his friends for a few hours. He kind of like teleported around Israel. He told them all to meet him at one of their favorite spots. His 12 best friends, his apostles, all came there and met him. He then gave one final lesson, and then he just ascended up into the sky. He said he forgives all sinners through all of time, and says, "I'm going to be in heaven with my Father." So that's the story right there. And when Jesus came back to life, what holiday is that? That's Easter. Easter is another big holiday for Christianity. All right. So, yep, Jesus coming back to life, and Jesus floating up to heaven, the last time on earth. Okay, so this is what Christianity believes. All right, and Christianity is probably the simplest religion for this. What happens when you die? Well, two things. When you die, your soul either goes to heaven or your soul goes to hell. And heaven is just eternal, lasting bliss. It's amazing, high five, super awesome place you want to be forever. And hell is eternal suffering and fire and pain and, oh my God, bad. And the only thing that will determine if you go up or if you go down is if at some point in your life you have, well, not some point in your life, if at the moment of your death you truly accepted Jesus Christ and that you truly believe in the Christian religion. That's it. It's a yes or a no, and it's pretty simple. The other religions get kind of complicated with this. So yeah, that's what you do. So it's either you hug Jesus or you burn with the devil. All right. And then here's another important part of Christianity that's going to cause a lot of big issues in world history. There's this part of the Bible that says this: there is one God who is a jealous God. And the Christian God asks that you spread his word to others and you offer them salvation and save them from damnation. Okay, this line here, Exodus 34:14. You shall not worship any other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Oh goodness. So if you can imagine, if you're a hardcore Christian person and someone asks you to believe in another God, you're not going to do it because you know that what's waiting for you is super heaven, so you're like willing to die if that's what it takes. And then also the part of the Bible that says spread the word, like Christians are going to get excited about this. They're going to be like, okay, let's knock on doors, and share the message. Okay, so there's the Bible right there. All right, moving on. Now let's get into like early Christian history. Okay, so Jesus dies around the year 35 and then ascends to heaven. And his best friends, especially Peter and Paul, they spend the rest of their life traveling around the Roman world, teaching people the story of Jesus. And eventually they too pass away. And early on, Christianity was not popular. Like a lot of people really doubting a lot of this stuff, saying like, I don't really believe in that story. So it wasn't until about 100 AD, so this is 70 years after Jesus ascends, that finally most European cities now have a growing Christian population. And this religion was picking up really fast, especially among poor people, because poor people said, wait, all I have to do is say I believe in this God and then I live in heaven for all of eternity? It sounded like a good deal to them. Okay, and well, let's also talk back about Roman politics during this period too. The Romans had this idea that all gods should be on their side. But they also said that the current Roman emperor was a god, and that every single person living in the empire had to worship the Roman emperor as a god too. Well, Christians refuse to worship the Roman emperor because they read that part of the Bible that says, God's jealous. Well, for the next 200 years, Christianity would be seen as an enemy of Rome. It would be this underground religion, and it would be functionally illegal, but people would still do it anyway. And this is going to cause some big issues in Roman politics. Okay. Christianity was outlawed. Yep, right there. I just said that. And famously, for 200 years, Christians were fed to the lions during gladiator games. There were all kinds of people who would go to the Colosseums, watch gladiator matches, and usually kind of the opening act was to throw a bunch of Christians in there, give them one last chance to worship the Roman emperor. The Christians would refuse. Then they'd bring out the lions, or they'd crucify the Christians. They would do just terrible, terrible things to them. But surprisingly enough, a lot of these Christians were really hardcore about it, and they refused to worship another god. They believed in their God all the way to the end, and even when they were getting burned alive and eaten by lions and stuff. And that's why these early Christians are given the phrase martyrs. A martyr is someone who dies defending their religion or defending what they believe in. And the Roman government was really confused because they thought that by killing these people in such savage ways, the audience members of the crowd would recognize, like, oh, I'm not going to do Christianity. That religion's, going to get me fed to the lions. But people were just honestly impressed with how stoic these Christians were as they were being burned alive, as they were being eaten by lions. A lot of time they were singing. They were asking for death. And people in the crowd are like, I'm curious about this. What is this Jesus guy, and how is he inspiring people to do this? And so, yeah, the numbers of Christianity continued to grow even while the Christians were being so terribly persecuted. Okay, so there's some Christians, and yeah, here's a mosaic of a Christian getting fed to some kind of cat. Um, all right, but now the status of Christianity in the Roman Empire is going to dramatically change with a dude named Constantine the Great. Okay, so Constantine, he was from a rich Roman family. He was one of the lead generals of Rome, and he was in the middle of a civil war. And this civil war was, but I think it was between him and his cousin. And anyway, he was losing this civil war, and he had this friend who was kind of an undercover Christian. And Constantine was like, man, like, what am I going to do? There's going to be this big battle tomorrow. I don't have the numbers. I don't have the tactical positioning. I think I'm going to lose tomorrow. So his missionary friend said, pray to the God of Jesus Christ, ask him for help, and tomorrow God will send you a sign. So Constantine was like really kind of skeptical about it. He's like, all right, fine. He in the middle of the night, he prays. He asks the Christian God for help. Says if he sends help, he'll become a Christian. And sure enough, the next day, help comes. So there you go. All right, so there's Constantine riding in a battle. Here's a big statue of the dude. And yeah, the next day, Constantine and his whole army look up in the sky, and sure enough, there is a cross in the sky. What the heck? And so he and his whole army immediately converted to Christianity. They paint the cross on their shields, they charge in a battle, they win, and all future Roman emperors after Constantine will be Christians as well. This epic victory was called the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. At that battle, he kills his rival and he does become emperor. And I'll tell you, there is historical evidence that there was absolutely a cross in the sky that day. Now, what did the cross actually look like? What was it composed of? Well, that's up to interpretation, but something was in the sky that day that inspired a whole bunch of dudes to change their religion. So let's see what that possibly was. All right, moving on. So, yep, seeing the cross in the sky. Oh, gosh, cross in the sky being held by angels. And, yep, cross in the sky. What's up with that? Well, historians are pretty skeptical that it was actually a wooden cross. But what's very possible is it was like a cross in the shape of clouds. And here's some examples of probably what Constantine saw that day. And these are, like, you can study weather patterns, and this stuff can naturally happen. But it's pretty impressive that this happened on the exact day when Constantine asked God for a message. So, all right. So was it something like this? Something like this? Who knows? Who knows what it was? All right. So Constantine becomes the first Christian Roman emperor in 313. And then, 70 years later, Constantine's ancestor, Emperor Theodosius, he makes Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. And this is just pretty wild, because before Constantine, if you were a Christian, you would be killed. But then after Theodosius, if you were not Christian, you would be killed. So the whole European world had this flippity flip of religion in about 100 years. So pretty wild stuff. Also, interestingly enough, there was some confusion over when exactly Christmas was and when exactly Easter was. And they had this big kind of powwow meeting at the Council of Nicaea in 325 when they finally put dates on some of these important Christian events. And this is the flag of the later Roman Empire, okay? They really took on Christianity wholeheartedly. And what is this symbol called again? The Chi Rho. And here are the later Roman emperors, okay? They're starting to look quite medieval and no longer looking like ancient Rome at all. So the Chi Rho, Theodosius, being hardcore into Christianity. Okay, so let's talk about some other little things with Christianity. Not every Christian will believe this, but most Christians do, that there's sort of one more step you have to go other than just saying you believe in Jesus. Another way to sort of prove your commitment to this faith is you have a process called a baptism. Somebody pours some water on your head, maybe they dunk you underwater, they dunk you in a river, they dunk you in the ocean. Water is involved somehow. What's a pretty common thing is when a baby is born, the parents want to baptize the baby to show God that the baby believes, so they sprinkle some water on the baby's head. You don't want to dunk a baby underwater. That could freak out the baby. So baptism is another important thing with the Christian faith, but not every Christian does it. I would say most do it. So, yep, there's a dude getting baptized and baptizing a baby. All right. So let's talk about the differences between the Jewish faith and the Christian faith. The big difference is just Jesus, okay? Jewish people don't believe in Jesus at all, okay? Jesus was a teacher, wasn't holy, no connection to God. Christianity says Jesus was the Son of God and in many ways is sort of connected to God's holiness. So, yeah. But also, Christianity totally builds on Judaism because if you remember from the Torah, there's this whole talk about a Messiah will come, this guy will come that will change the world. Well, Christianity says we found that guy, so we're building off of the Jewish faith. And Judaism is also a religion that totally focuses on the Jewish people. Judaism, they're not really out there seeking converts. They're not knocking on doors saying, become Jewish. Christianity, on the other hand, there's this almost desperation to reach as many people as possible because you want to save other people's souls. Some other things, the Jewish faith, it's largely the same. You could talk to a Jewish person in America, in Israel, in Europe, and they're largely going to have the same ideas about how to follow their faith. But if you talk to Christians in various parts of the world, they'll all agree on Jesus, but then they'll have very different interpretations of how to worship, because Christianity kind of morphed and molded into many unique cultures around the planet. So, all right, there you go. Moving on. So Christians around the world, as you see, mostly Europe, this half of the world, Southern Africa. Not a whole lot of Christians in the Middle East Philippines there's a lot, but not really too many in Asia. And then there's a preacher reading the Word of God, and then here's, I think, Billy Graham talking about Jesus. So Christianity became the first and only religion to have a strict organizational process. There's this international organization of the Christian faith called the Roman Catholic Church. And for most of history, the Roman Catholic Church was the only version of Christianity that was practiced around the world. That eventually changes as history moves on. We'll get there. But let's just deep dive into the Catholic faith. So the local level organization, kind of the lieutenant of the Catholic faith, is someone you would call the priest, the minister, or the father. His superior is the bishop or the cardinal, you could say is like the general. And then the worldwide leader of the Christian faith is someone called the Pope. And the Pope lives in the Vatican City in Rome. And the current Pope is a dude named Pope Francis. He's the first Pope from Latin America, the only non-European Pope in all world history. And he's a super high-fiveable, awesome dude. Women are also encouraged to be involved in this religion. They're known as nuns if they super commit. I think nuns are still happening around the world today. I mean, I don't think they're as popular, as common as they were in the past, but there is some sexism in hardcore Christianity. I wonder if there could ever be a female pope. I doubt it, though. I don't think that's gonna happen. All right, so let's check it out. So there's a priest or a father talking to the local people. There's some nuns, and there's Pope Francis. He goes outside. A freaking dove lands on his finger. What a awesome dude. Okay, so Christianity was such a big deal in Europe. Many cultures didn't call this area of planet Earth Europe. They called it Christendom, the land of the Christians, because that's where they were. And Christianity is going to be a really big part of European culture for the rest of world history. All right, that's it with me. So anyway, peace out.